would not pass the assessment. I would no longer get to live here in the patrol compound. I would be banished clearance like so many others before me, and there the nightmare would eventually become a reality. I rubbed my eyes fiercely with my fists clenched, trying to regain control. There were no tears, only a white-hot ball of lead in my stomach. I had cried, night after night, unable to prevent the tears from staining my cheeks under my scratchy blanket on this very cot. But weeks had gone by, and I knew that my very survival rested on me hiding my heartbreak from the people around me and maintaining an iron mask of control while I adapted to life as an ordinary patrol citizen. So I had buried the memories of clearance citizens floundering in the waters of the bay at the foot of the mountain which hid them from the rest of the Beck. Erected a mountain in my head, which mostly managed to hide these thoughts from view and allowed me to continue with life as though I'd never seen such horrors in the first place. Shifting into a sitting position, I leaned over to the cot next to me and gently tapped the arm of the girl who still lay sleeping. She moaned in protest as she felt me wake her and rolled onto her side, her face turned away. "Jackson." My voice was no more than a hissed whisper, born of years spent in the lower Beck where free speech was not permitted. I was still unused to the differing rules in patrol where citizens could, within reason, speak to one another without fear of reprisal. One of the many privileges allowed up here, and which I found difficult not to feel guilty about. I turned my attention once more to the sleeping form in the next cot. Determined to wake her, I prodded her more ruthlessly now. Eventually, she shifted back to face me, sleep clouding her eyes. "What? It's morning. So you say. Well, almost. Want to go for a run?" She made a face. "Not really." In Agric, my previous sector, our freedom had been very limited. Here in patrol, citizens were permitted to engage in certain pursuits during their off-duty hours, as long as it didn't interfere with their work assignments and duties. Patrol was extremely physical, so keeping fit was positively encouraged. On the plus side for us, it allowed conversations to take place out of the earshot of other pod members we did not necessarily trust. We didn't have a lot of free time, and early morning was used by most patrol officers to get some very necessary rest. But my days in Agric had showed me how capable I was of functioning on far less sleep than others, and dawn was a perfect time to run in private. Jackson, on the other hand, valued her sleep, and it was often more difficult to persuade her to give up those precious moments of rest. But today I wanted to speak to her. "Please, Jack." She sighed, glancing around at the rest of the pod, who were all still sleeping. Shaking her head, she hauled herself into a sitting position and shuffled to the edge of the bed. Minutes later, we were running along the side of the field which led up into the hills that flanked the upper Beck area. We jogged uphill, towards the solar fields, the steep incline preventing us from speaking at all. It was hard work, but I revelled in it, all my focus being driven into catching my breath, making it up the punishing slope, reaching the top. Together we raced through the woods, coming out on the other side and working our way up into the meadows which housed the large panels, their shiny surfaces catching the light and glinting in the rising sun. Unusually, it looked as though it would be a fine day today. At the edge of the fields we slowed and nodded at the two officers guarding the panels. Neither of them were very familiar to us, and united in our desire to avoid conversations with those we didn't trust, we circled the fields and began our descent, the density of the trees hiding the patrol compound from view for now. "Nightmare again?" I nodded, not trusting myself to answer. "We all have them, you know." Entering the canopy of trees, she glanced around and slowed to a walk before bending down to rest, her hands on her knees. At this hour of the morning, the woods were usually deserted. I leaned heavily against a tree, marvelling at how my muscles had developed in the short time I had lived in patrol, how better rations and more regular training had hardened and shaped my body. "There's no way we could see what we saw and not be affected by it, Quin." She paused, dropping her voice to a whisper. "It's about not letting it show." "I know, I don't.